Director of Media Monitoring Africa, William Bird, has accused Communications and Digital Technologies Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni of interfering with the SABC's operations by trying to force the public broadcaster to comply with what she says. Ntshavheni has threatened to withhold the release of the next financial assistance for the SABC's turnaround strategy. This follows SABC's media statement on Friday that the public broadcaster was losing revenue due to the planned switch off of all analogue transmitters at the end of the month to migrate to digital television. Bird says they are consulting their lawyers in light of the minister's threats against the SABC for asserting its independence.
The minister pushed the SABC into a corner where they had no choice but to either say we're either going to fall in line and comply with what the minister says, or we're going to assert our independence and we're going to say no. We have to operate in the best interests of the public broadcaster, not in the best interests of the minister. And those two are very often fundamentally different things, as it is in this case. So in response to that, she then decides that, okay, she's clearly very angry and upset about this because it's you've got your broadcaster, effectively, you the shareholder, and they're saying to you, no, we don't want to go in this direction. Saying that that's the case, and now she's threatening all sorts of issues, and it's clearly a reaction to that, and something that I think really smacks of ministerial interference. In fact, we're busy consulting our lawyers to have a look at that, because it's a very real problem when your minister, because you assert your independence, says no. We're going to now withdraw our funding. We're going to withdraw these reports. You've misrepresented this. You've misrepresented that. Again, why is she only bringing that up now? If it was the case that she had seen that, or if that was the view that she'd held earlier, why weren't they engaging on these issues over several months? A lot of these things just don't make sense, and the arguments that have been presented by the department, unfortunately, don't make sense. They've been saying things like, well, the SABC could start an education channel which will bring in 5 million views. Well, maybe they can, and in fact we know they're already running an educational channel, but that isn't going to stop millions of poor people from being cut off from free-to-air television, and consequently SABC losing its advertisers.
All right, we're now joined via Zoom by Professor Anton Harber from the Wits Centre for Journalism to weigh in on these developments regarding the SABC funding. A very good afternoon to you. Prof, thanks very much for joining us here on SABC News.
Thank you very much.
Now, before we talk about the move, the switch to digital, let's get your analysis, please, on the minister's actions in terms of threatening to withhold the SABC's financial assistance. It's perceived to be due to the fallout over this digital migration. What are your views on what the minister has said and what she has threatened?
Thank you. I think it's a very ominous series of threats from the minister. William Bird was quite right that it's clearly tied up with their disagreement over digital migration. She's responded with a series of threats to withdraw her sanction for reports they've submitted, to report them to the Auditor General, to withhold finances. And this is a bullying approach. It's completely inappropriate for the minister to make such threats. Under such circumstances. It's an attempt to bully the board into not disagreeing with her. And the fact of the matter is the board has to represent the SABC and the public interest. And that may be different in specific elements from the minister's interest, because the minister is under a lot of political pressure to execute digital migration, and is clearly angry and upset that the SABC is not playing along the way she wants. But to respond in the way she has is really inappropriate and out of order.
Yeah, let me just read the board chair's statement. Bonguso Makatini says that the plan to switch off all analog TV transmitters by the 31st of March 2022 presents an unsustainable risk to the rights of millions of indigent households, as well as the corporation's turnaround plan. A premature switch off will deprive millions of people from the importance of public television services. And I mean, that's important when we're looking at the mandate of the SABC in terms of informing and educating. What does this then mean in terms of, I mean, you're with the School of Journalism, in terms of the sort of information that people should be receiving, how that could actually be a problem in terms of the Constitution too, in terms of the right to receive information. How could this all play out if indeed the minister her demands were indeed listened to?
Well, let me say that, digital migration has been delayed by a decade. So it needs to happen, and we need to get on with it. It's an important step in the modernization of our broadcasting and digital technology. But you have to be ready. You have to, it's a big switch. And if you just turn it off at the end of the month, as she proposed, then there will be literally millions of households which are deprived of television for some substantial time, at least. And clearly this is a problem. I think we know the important role the SABC and other television stations play in keeping people informed, in playing the role that broadcasting has to play. And yes, you're severely affecting people's rights if you just turn off their access without proper preparation, without doing what you need to ensure that houses that cannot afford to convert to digital or satellite television themselves are assisted in doing that. The government has had a scheme to do so. It has fallen short. So if they rush ahead to turn it off, then many South Africans will be deprived of a basic right of access to information.
Now, is there any way that we might possibly be, misunderstanding the minister? I mean, maybe there is some sort of big plan to assist indigent families to be able to access free-to-air even after the migration. Is there something perhaps that we've missed? I'm just trying to understand how, the plan would be just to switch off and, let the rest see, what they do in terms of accessing information and accessing television. Is there perhaps some way that we're missing it? I mean, you've mentioned clearly that this migration does indeed need to happen. So I wonder, in which way would it have to happen? And maybe that is the way that the minister was, had it in mind. What way would you see it happening?
It has to happen with proper preparation. If the minister has a plan to speed things up and make it happen, then we need to hear that plan. Of course, the government did have a plan originally to provide 5 million households with a free set-top box that would facilitate access to digital TV. Only if that number was reduced over time, probably correctly, but only a fraction of those have been installed. So there's a missing middle of people who are not ready and who lose their access to television. And this is why the tone of the minister's response is so extraordinary. She needs to be talking to the broadcasters, to the public about what the plan is to deal with this very serious issue. But in fact, she's been generally quite silent on whether there's a plan. One wants to admire a push to get this done because it has been too long delayed. We have been demanding that there be movement. But if you do it without proper preparation, then it can be a very destructive and problematic move.
All right, Prof, thanks very much for giving us your time here on SABC News. All right, that is Professor Anton Harber from the Wits Centre for Journalism. Well,